All right, folks, appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football for the latest. The drama builds, and it looks as though the boys are right into it when it comes to the college football playoff rankings. Of course, championship games this weekend. I missed 25 through 21. We are standing on UNLV at 20, Mizzou 19, BYU 18. We've left the call-in line in the chat. Please check it out. Of course, your comments and questions are welcome as well. We are simulcasting on all sorts of college football playoff candidates channels. And therefore, we're inviting all of you to join in on the show. We've got Clemson at 17. They dropped 5 spots after I thought they were overranked. Sorry, Clemson fans, the week before. But they've dropped 5 spots. But for Clemson, it doesn't matter. Clemson is going to be in the playoff, of course, if they win the ACC championship game. They have no chance otherwise. Number 16, Iowa State. Same deal with them. They're not making the playoffs if they lose. If they win, they're in the playoffs. The ranking does not matter. Where these rankings will come into play will be for some of the teams higher. The rankings from about 15 to 25 late in the season, and especially at this point, have more to do with helping or hurting the cause of the teams that are fighting for a playoff spot. Arizona State at number 15, coming off a big win against rival Arizona. Sun Devils at 10-2. They're up a spot from 16. There we've got South Carolina. That was one of the big deals right there to try to figure out, okay, what's South Carolina now that they have defeated Clemson. They were down until late in that game. They were down 14-7. Their last 2 drives, a field goal drive to get them to within 4, and then a touchdown from Lenora Sellers with a minute left. And they picked off Cade Klubnik at the end with the Tigers within scoring reach. And they were able to get the big win. So South Carolina needs some help at number 14. Ole Miss at 13. And so we would think that either Miami's coming up or Alabama, and they're going to keep those 3 together in the SEC. Of course, Miami dropping from 6 down to wherever. And Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina were in a row last week at 13, 14, and 15. So they might be in a row this week at 12, 13, and 14. And again, we'll just have to wait and see if Miami forges a wedge, which they have. Yes, there we go, between these 3. And so Miami drops from 6 to 12. I believe I've got Miami at 13. I do. And so the committee, of course, is now going to go with Alabama, you would think. And I got to say that other than the eye test, I don't know what the consideration is for Alabama that far above the other 2. They did defeat South Carolina, of course, head-to-head, and Ole Miss is right now living off of that South Carolina win, as they should in the direct comparison against South Carolina. Ole Miss won the game by 24 points. So we still have SMU out there. We still have Indiana out there, but I would expect Alabama would slot in at number 11. There they are. Bama at 11. They went up 2 spots from number 13. And again, they forged Miami right in between those 3 that seem to be somewhat inseparable, those 9-3 trio from the SEC. So right now, we got to take into consideration that either Arizona State or Iowa State, the winner of the Big 12, is going to jump up into that top 12 ranking. Not necessarily the ranking. They can rank them wherever they want, but they're going to jump up as a top 5 conference champion up into and they're going to take a top 12 bid. Again, it doesn't matter what the rankings are. If you win a conference championship as a top 5 conference champion, you could be ranked 1 million, and you're going to take one of those top 12 spots. So Bama's still not in just guaranteed position here. We got Boise State at 10. Then I got to think Indiana's going to be here next. There they are. I'd like to see these compared to my predictions. So the last couple of weeks, we have predicted the rankings, and I believe we're right there with everyone. And we might be off by one spot on a few teams. SMU's got to be coming up at 8. We'll see if Ohio State drops below SMU or the Buckeyes stay above SMU, which I got to think they will. I think this is SMU's spot at 8. There we've got SMU at 8. Mustangs 11-1. There is a possibility, if you really think about it. Now, SMU, they could have used Clemson winning against South Carolina. Then Clemson, if they had defeated South Carolina, Clemson right now would be probably number 11 in the country because they were 12. So they certainly wouldn't have dropped after a significant win. So Clemson had that game until a minute left, and that would have aided SMU to possibly lose the conference championship game and stay in the playoff. But they can't lose to number 17 and get an at-large bid. There we've got Tennessee at 7. And I believe I've got Tennessee above Ohio State. I thought the committee would go with Tennessee above Ohio State. So I've got those two flip-flopped. Certainly Tennessee has, when you look at the losses, they lost to a 6-6 Arkansas team. They lost to a Georgia team that's 10-2, top 5 in the country. And Ohio State lost this Michigan game, which is kind of their Arkansas game, although Michigan is, you would have to think, a little bit better than Arkansas. And then Ohio State lost to the number 1 team in the country. So the losses side with Ohio State on this one in the comparison against Tennessee. So there the Buckeyes at number 6. They dropped 4 spots from number 2. They should be safe based on this ranking. You know, there's really no way they get knocked out of the playoff with that ranking. There we've got Georgia at 5. And this pretty much sets up for Notre Dame at number 4. Penn State 3, Texas 2, and Oregon number 1. There's the Irish moving up a spot, as did Georgia with the Ohio State loss. Everybody moves up a spot, and Oregon stays number 1. All right, we will take your calls, and again, we will post the rankings as soon as they become available online. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. The Amazon link, when you do that Christmas shopping, please use the Amazon link that we provide in the description section of all the videos, including this one. It's right there at the top, near the top, the Amazon link. It's in caps. Just grab that link. It's the same shopping experience. Doesn't cost you a penny. It's the one way you can contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. All right, let's get to the calls. We got our buddy Michael on the line. Michael, what's going on?
Hey, Mark, how you doing today, sir?
I am doing just fine. What's up with you?
Battling a cold, but I'm okay. Hey, I gotta ask you this: what made you? Is it? Oh, I posted 21 through 25 in the chat for you. 21 was Illinois, 22 was UNLV, 23 was Colorado, 24 was Army, 25 was Memphis.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. But no, it's because of the close loss, and with Bama being at 11, do you think Miami's completely eliminated now, being at 12?
Let's see here. So, yeah, I really do much better with these these questions when I can look at the list.
Sorry.
No, it's not your fault. You're here calling to ask questions. So I can't imagine how Miami can get in because they can't help themselves. Nobody can help them. Nobody around them is going to falter because all these teams are not playing. And the best teams in the country, see, in other years, there will be teams that will be on the bubble and they will be playing in conference championship games. But we've got teams in the Big Ten and the SEC that are so cemented in that none of them are leaving. None of them are moving. They're not moving far enough to miss out. And so, and with 2 other spots going to Big Ten teams and those teams not moving, this is where basically you've got the winner of the Big 12 jumping Miami and Miami really can't move now. And then the other issue is that Boise State, if they lose, they just get replaced by UNLV. Now, UNLV is not going to rise as high as Miami in the rankings and supplant them in the rankings, but they have to take the place at the conference championship and be the top group of 5. So, yeah, Miami is basically screwed. Yes.
All right. Say Texas just beats a Libby, gives Georgia a Texas butt whooping, and Georgia gets their 3rd loss this season. Is there a case for Georgia to fall out of the top 12?
No. They're number 5 in the country, and they would have lost to the number 2 team in the country. And even if it was ugly, so there's 2 things working. Number 1, they've already proven they can beat that team.
Yeah.
So they already beat them. Number 2, the committee has said that they are not going to penalize for conference championship game losses. I don't totally agree with that, nor do I believe them completely, but I think they will hold to that to a certain extent. And number 3, it's Georgia. And if there are other teams in the SEC getting in at 9-3, they will certainly get in at 10-3.
So you think regardless of what happens Saturday with SMU, they're safe?
No. SMU?
Yeah.
No, I do not think they're safe. No, okay. They're playing the number 17 team in the country. So, yeah, they're not safe.
Okay. I was just wondering because I didn't know if there was a chance. I know the Clemson would have to take over and stuff like that, but would that still leave one team out, though? Or would that still be all 12?
Say that again, Michael.
All right. Mark, I'm sorry. Bear with me. I am about
all right. I'm sorry you don't feel well.
Anyway, is there a chance that if SMU gets their brain beating like what Georgia did to Clemson this year, that Miami gets back in there? Or is it Miami's done?
No, because SMU is just going to be replaced by Clemson.
Okay. So Miami pretty much killed themselves last Saturday.
Well, again, I haven't gone through all of it top to bottom and tried to figure out every other, but I'm not seeing where Miami's got a place because everyone who is in the top 12 is staying there, or if they lose, they are being replaced by somebody outside the top 12 automatically, meaning there's a Big 12 team that's outside the top 12 right now that's going to be in the top 12.
Yeah.
And when I say that, they may not necessarily make it inside the top 12 in the rankings, but they're going to be in the top 12 when the seedings come out because they're a conference champion. And there is going to be a team to replace Boise State if Boise State loses the conference championship game, and it's going to be the conference champion in the Mountain West. Yeah. They're going to jump up UNLV and take one of those spots.
Unfortunately, I wish Army would have had a shot to do it.
What's that?
I wish Army would have had a shot to do it.
Well, they've got to have a better football team. That's the problem.
I know. But I am kind of disappointed, because right before you came on, you had the whole room lit up in red. I'm like, cool, maybe Mark will leave the red light on tonight to do the whole street.
Stay right there, Michael. If this in any way makes you feel better, then it's worth it. I certainly don't mind not having a light shining right in my eyes all night. So,
all right,
we'll do that. How's that?
Sorry for my squeaky voice, but thanks for taking my call. Enjoy it.
Thank you, Michael.
Listen to the rest of the show.
Thank you, Michael. Have a good night. Take care of yourself. Plenty of
I
fluids.
will do that. See you, man. Thanks.
So, yes, plenty of fluids. See all these fluids here? There you go. Plenty of fluids, folks. All right, let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. The real MVP's on the line.
Hey, Mark. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing good. I posted the rankings in the private chat for
thank you.
Yeah, the committee does a great job of posting them. I think none of these rankings are too surprising outside of Tennessee, Ohio State. Why do you think the committee decided to put Ohio State over Tennessee?
Because they've got a better resume.
Oh.
And they probably think they're better, like most people do.
Fair enough. But I thought during your what you thought the committee was going to do was put Tennessee above Ohio.
I was wrong. I was wrong. I thought that the overall schedule. So I think Ohio State has a better win in Penn State than anything Tennessee has. And I think that their losses are clearly more understandable than Tennessee's. But I thought the overall strength of Tennessee's schedule would be weighed by the committee.
Okay, and now, do you think this could flip if Georgia goes out and beats Texas again? And Penn State loses to Oregon?
Sure, but then, so it could, certainly, because the committee is supposed to be evaluating previous wins and losses. So if Georgia proves to be even better, and of course Tennessee had to play them, and all the other games you just mentioned with Penn State, although it's kind of tricky with the Oregon-Penn State dynamic because both of them played Ohio State. So absolutely, they can do whatever they want and justify it in some way.
I understand, but
I would be okay with that. I would understand it. I would have thought that they should have done it now, though, if they were going to do it. I don't know where an Oregon win over Penn State in any such way really changes the dynamic of where Ohio State stands. It's more about, the Georgia win, if they double up on Texas and win again, that Tennessee gets some points for that.
Right. Well, the only reason I was saying that is because Tennessee and Ohio State's best win will both have 2 losses. And I think the committee's very simplistic at looking things.
Yes, they are.
Something else, Mark, I'll ask you about is there any chance for anybody not named Alabama to get the final at-large seed?
Okay, so let's go through it. 4 in the Big 10, 1 Big 12, 1 ACC, 1 group of 5 gives us 7. Notre Dame is 8. We're at 12. We need 4 from the SEC. Georgia, Texas, Tennessee. Yeah, it's going to be Alabama, right?
I would assume so, but
yeah, there's no way to move these teams at all. The games are all over.
So then do you think this is SEC bias that Alabama is ranked where they are?
I should really do a resume matchup of Alabama, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Miami, and the 2 Big 12 teams in SMU. I guess I could extend it that far because obviously if Clemson loses, they're a 10-3 team. So at least with those teams involved, I don't think it's SEC bias. I think we all came into this season and there should be no prejudgments on the season. But once the SEC won big non-conference games, and it does have the most impressive list of wins outside the conference, that the SEC was going to generally get a 1-game buffer, and maybe the Big Ten would as well. We don't know over the other conferences. I think it's justified. I think the conference is significantly, I wish I could put a percentage on it, tougher than the ACC and the Big 12.
Okay. And
we had a big, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We had a Big 12 show the other day, and the folks doing us with us. So we just started that a couple weeks ago. So folks, you can join us on Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern time. I'm a bit distracted. My apologies. I'm a bit distracted by my monitor going out here. Anyway, that Monday, 2 p.m. Eastern time. So there was a comment made because we've got some Big 12 homers, and I love them, and there's a reason I bring them on, but they're Big 12 homers to be real. And there was a comment made that, well, Brett Yormark was on one of the broadcasts this weekend, and he said that, he was just letting everybody know, well, the Big 12 has won 75% of its non-conference games. And I went, okay, we're talking about so it was phrased power conference games. And I said, whoa, 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 hang on here. I said, was he talking about their overall non-conference games? Every conference can claim that. They play so many FCS and Group of 5 that every conference is winning way over 75% of its non-conference games. No, those are power conference games. I said, well, then either you misheard or he was lying. Well, no, we've had a really good season non-conference. Have you really? And I said, let's take it from the top. And we went through all the teams. And I believe the closing number was 5-11.
Not exactly impressive.
No, especially considering most of those wins were against
Iowa is their best win.
Iowa was their best win.
Which is sad and pathetic. It's an 8-4 team that's probably the 40th best team in the country. The 16th best team should beat them.
Actually, SMU is their best win.
Okay, fair enough. SMU was a legitimate football team, and that's the team I was going to bring up next. Mark, let's say Clemson beats SMU. Does SMU replace Alabama for the 11th spot?
We're going to assume a close game. SMU at 9, Alabama at 11. They lose to number 17. Number 17's lost to Georgia by 28 points, and they just lost to South Carolina, who is not going to make the playoff field.
It also got crushed at home to Louisville, who's 8-4 and not in the rankings.
Yes. Alabama, to be fair, lost to a Vandy team that's 6-6. They lost to what's their other bad loss? I can't think.
Vandy, Mark.
I just said Vandy. What's the other one?
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Yes, they lost by 3 touchdowns to Oklahoma, 6-6. And then, of course, they lost to Tennessee by a touchdown. I think the committee will drop SMU out of the playoff at 11-2, and Bama will make it at 9-3. I believe that's what's going to happen. I think that's where they're positioned at 11 versus 9. I think that people may not like that. And if they don't believe it's justified now, I understand that. But by making that 9-11 position, I think it can be justified if it happens.
Okay. Now I'm gonna kind of pressure you, Ben, on this. You said the committee should do that. Do you think it is justified they make that move? If you were in charge, you were sole power of the committee, would you make that move?
Well, of course, if I had that kind of authority, I would be really analyzing this more so than I am off the top of my head. But off the top of my head, SMU would have losses to BYU and Clemson. They would have a win over Louisville as, I believe, their best win.
I believe so. Did they play Duke as well? I don't know where you.
Okay, Duke 9-3, Louisville 8-4. The committee does not have Duke ranked. I have Duke barely ranked, and I don't believe Duke is as good as my ranking. I do not believe they're that good. I just gave them credit for going 9-3 in the ACC and not embarrassing themselves against the likes of SMU. So Alabama's played a much more difficult schedule than SMU. And yes, I would have Alabama be the last at-large team over SMU.
Yeah, I saw SMU's current strength of schedule is 75th, which is below Indiana currently, to tell you how light their schedule has been.
Yeah, one of their big wins was Pitt. They lost their last 5 games of the year. We were talking about Pitt when they were 7-0 and letting everyone know that they weren't good.
Right. And I think SMU, if they do make the playoffs, now I think this season's been exciting in terms of the brand newness of it all, more fan bases and stuff. But one of the downsides, I think, of the college football playoff is if we have an SMU make it and everybody kind of knows they ain't worth it, they will get, in my opinion, they'll get absolutely destroyed in the college football playoff by a legitimate team like an Ohio State, like a Georgia, like an Oregon, like a Penn State. They just don't have the players to compete against that team. I mean, if you just watch the games, Mark, it's clear they're not on those teams' level. Can we all agree on that?
Well, we can agree that if they had to play through those types of teams week after week, but I think on a given night they can match up and they can play a competitive game against any one of those teams. It would not surprise me if SMU played any one of the teams that you just mentioned and they lost the game 42-14. It would also not surprise me if it was a 4-quarter game, if there was still a game to be played with 10 minutes left in the game.
Maybe.
I think
Maybe,
they're
but I just
capable.
don't.
I don't think they can consistently. I don't think like any performance that they put out there is going to challenge a top 10 team in the country. I think they have to be on it. And there's about, I guess, 1/3 chance that they're on their game and they play a competitive 4-quarter game against a team like that. And there's about 1/3 of a chance that they're pretty much just going to get slowly distanced and they lose 38-17. And it's not embarrassing, but they really didn't belong out there. Or they just get completely crushed about 1/3 of the time.
Right. So basically, there's a 66% chance, in your opinion, it's not going to be a great football game. Whereas if we had Alabama, it was much more likely it would be a good football game.
Sure.
Also, Mark, I'm so happy we expanded the college football playoffs now. I'm glad we're letting the little kids and the underdog and the people who just never have a chance like Alabama, Ole Miss, finally get their chance to make the college football playoff, Mark. I'm happy. Isn't this what everybody wanted, Mark? A 3-loss Alabama or 3-loss Ole Miss to make the college football playoff when we expanded it. I mean, these universities, Mark, they just don't have the funding. They don't have the history. They're just basically the homeless people. I'm glad they're taking it to the elites. Don't you completely agree with that? This is what the system was designed for, right? In this new age of college football.
Actually, what we're watching is what the system was designed to do. Just give us more elites.
Yeah, but when everybody was talking about, except for you, I'll give you credit for this, but everyone's like, oh my gosh, can you imagine some crappy teams like Iowa State, Arizona State, BYU make the college football playoff, or Boise State and upset? No, what's going to happen is what's happening this year more often than not. A 2 or 3-loss SEC or Big Ten team going in there and whooping on those teams just to put you all back in reality.
Well, we've yet to see that. So it's going to be a fun experiment.
I think it'll only be a short-lived experience because I think we all kind of understand if Alabama went to Boise State, Alabama would destroy Boise State. Alabama's players are just so significantly better than Boise State. It's not even fair.
Okay. Do we have reasonable projections on if the games go as expected this weekend, what the seedings are going to look like?
Yeah, they were on the they had the bracket up. You would have, now I don't have the bracket in front of me, but Arizona State would be the 12th seed, and they would play, I think, Penn State right now as the 5 seed. And then Boise State's the 4 seed. So probably whoever's the 5 seed, which would be Notre Dame, Texas, Georgia, Penn State, or Oregon, would have their first 2 games be Arizona State and Boise State, which is where the experiment will be done. Ohio State's going to have to go, Tennessee's going to have to go on the road to play Ohio State. And then Alabama's going to go on the road to play Notre Dame. And Indiana is going to go on the road to play, forget who. I think Georgia. I think it was Georgia. They have to go on the road to play Georgia currently.
Yeah.
Can you imagine Indiana going on the road to play Georgia? How lopsided would that game be? Oh my goodness.
We shall see.
I think it'd be at least 4 touchdowns. At least 4 touchdowns.
I would take the 4 touchdowns.
Yeah. Have you seen Georgia when they're on this year? I've
seen them when they're on, and I've seen them when they're off.
Yeah, when they're on is when they play the best competition. When they're off is when they don't play the best competition. This isn't really hard to figure out. They've just been, they're just bored with the season. And that's all that's happened with them.
Could be. But let's see them play.
I understand, and this is going to be a fun experiment. I think, and what also I'm happy for is these SEC teams are going to have to go up north, and we're going to be able to figure out if the wind was too loud, or like your boy Ryan Day said yesterday, complaining about the wind in the Michigan game, if that has a factor against us when we go up there traveling north. Did you see that comment Ryan Day made about the wind?
Well, I know that he made comments about the wind in the post game when asked about throwing the ball.
Yeah, well, why are we making excuses, Mark?
Well, I don't know that, again, he might have made other comments about the wind that were excuses. The comment that I heard, I did not consider an excuse. It was a reason for not throwing the ball as much.
Yeah, to me, you're Ohio State. I don't care what the wind is like. You should throw the football. This isn't hard to figure out. You're Ohio State. You've got the best wide receivers in the country. You've got a solid quarterback. You've got a great tight end. You've got all the weapons. Throw the football. Doesn't matter. I mean, unless Ohio State, I guess, plays every single game in a dome, then there's always going to be some sort of reason, explanation, or excuse why they lost.
Possibly.
Yeah. Every game should be played at the Lions Stadium. But, Mark, that's all I got for you. I'm looking forward to Tennessee going up there and getting your coach fired.
Yeah, that would be the outcome. All right, folks, we appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football, and certainly let some folks out there that love college football know that we're here all the time, and certainly on Tuesday nights with this watch party. But this will be the final one, because next week, of course, we're going to do this on Sunday. So I believe at noon Eastern on Sunday, we'll all get together and run through the college football playoff rankings and watch the reveal that will mean everything at that point, and then be with you throughout the day to respond to all the coaches' firings that are most likely, and also respond to the bowl selections. Again, folks, the Amazon link's in the description section of all the videos. When you shop on Amazon, please use the link that we provide. Hey, Rob, what's going on today?
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
I'm good.
So I wanted to talk about this. I mean, people have been saying this all year, and then some people fight back against it, whatever. But like, there's no the notion that there's an SEC bias to me is a little bit overplayed. I think in past years it was a little bit more prevalent, but I mean this year it's basically been the Big Ten leading the charge. Certainly top heavy in the not only the AP poll but also the playoff rankings for quite a while. And there is something to be said about Ohio State losing in the fashion that they did to unranked Michigan and dropping only 4 spots in the playoffs. Now, I'm not saying that Ohio State should drop out of the top 6. I still think they're a team that's easily capable of putting together a run, and if they play to their potential, they can probably beat anybody. But I'm just saying, like, anybody accusing there being like this major overarching SEC bias, I think you haven't really been paying too much attention. Like, now, what I would say, on the other hand, to kind of counteract that a little bit, I would say there's like a bit of a back end SEC bias. So I'm not saying there's no SEC bias at all, but like, I think there's a couple teams when it comes to that last spot in the playoffs. If we're looking at Miami, Alabama, SMU, I think the team that's getting a little bit disrespected, especially when you look at the SEC side of things, is Ole Miss. I mean, I would take Ole Miss over Alabama any day in the playoffs. I think they've earned it. I think they played a better season overall. And consistently, they had a really bad loss against Kentucky. Like, that's their ending. Like, every team has an NIU type game, not to that extent, but you know what I mean, like a really bad loss. And for Ole Miss, it was the Kentucky game. Like, you just can't lose that game if you're Ole Miss. But I just think Ole Miss, to me, they're the best of the bunch when it comes to that gaggle of teams like South Carolina, Alabama. That's the thing I'll say. There is 100%, maybe not an SEC bias, there's an Alabama bias.
Okay, so are you saying that based on how you think the teams have played, based on your observation, or are you saying that based on resume?
In my opinion, it's a bit of both, and the eye test as well. But I mean, Lane Kiffin was posting things on Twitter the other day about how his team only lost by this amount and that. And I'm not going to go over the whole thing. And I'm not saying that that's why I'm saying that Ole Miss is the best. I've just felt that way for a while. Just watching Ole Miss, they had a bad game. Like a lot of teams had a bad game in rivalry week. Like Ole Miss didn't play really well against a bad Mississippi State team. But I mean, Georgia went to 8 overtimes against Georgia Tech. And then, Notre Dame struggled for a while against USC. Obviously, Ohio State lost to Michigan. So, I mean, there was a lot of teams struggling in their rivalry week. But, like, to me, Ole Miss, I mean, they had one really bad game against Kentucky. But, I mean, they destroyed Georgia, like destroyed them. And they played really well against, they just had a really good year, in my opinion. I think I would take Ole Miss to win if I was a betting man, which I'm not. But out of those teams, Alabama, South Carolina, Ole Miss, I'd take Ole Miss, every day. Just my personal opinion.
Quick math here, Rob. The 3 teams that Alabama lost to have won 22 games. So they both lost to 3 SEC teams.
Mm-hmm.
So these are comparable schedules. For the most part, we could dissect it further. But Alabama lost to 3 teams that won 22 and lost 14. 22 and 14. The 3 teams that Ole Miss lost to are 19 and 17. So based on that, and I know that that's not all there is to it, that Alabama lost to 3 better teams than Ole Miss did, record-wise.
Yeah, I mean, and to me, there's like the transitive property, but I just think like Ole Miss has looked better. Like I think their worst. I should have pulled up that Lane Kiffin tweet, but he had some really good stats on there, and I just, like I said, for me it was the eye test. I don't think Ole Miss had any loss as embarrassing as Alabama's loss to Oklahoma.
No,
and that's another thing.
No, Ole Miss played every game down to the wire. All 3 losses were late. They had the ball in their hands against Florida, their last loss. Were driving, had it down to the 25-yard line, so they were gunning, throwing the ball in the end zone to win the game. The Kentucky game, they gave up a play on 4th and 7. They gave up a touchdown to Kentucky with like a minute left, and they drove all the way down the field. They missed a field goal, lost the game. The LSU game went to overtime, so that's self-explanatory. Bama got drubbed by Oklahoma by 3 touchdowns, and that was just an embarrassment. It was horrible. They were terrible. The Vandy game, Vandy's remarkably better than they've been, but they're still not a good team. I don't think they're as good as these other teams. And Bama lost only by 5, but they were trailing the entire game. They never really were in the game or even in the game. They were multiple scores down. And then, of course, the other game was against Tennessee. They lost on the road by a touchdown. So that's a respectable loss to the number 6 or 7 team in the country.
You know what I find really funny, Mark? As much as LSU and that fan base hates Alabama, LSU helped Alabama out by getting destroyed by Bama and then beating Ole Miss. If LSU loses to Ole Miss, this isn't even a discussion right now.
Yes. I don't know. If you were in the South, I don't know if you would think that LSU hated Alabama worse or Ole Miss.
I mean,
they hate both of them.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it from experiencing it for 7 years that, in a sense, Ole Miss and LSU is a bigger rivalry. I don't know. I think nationally people look at Alabama and LSU because of how good they were for a while competing against each other. But I don't know that the average LSU fan would say that.
Yeah, I don't know. I just, it's funny to me. I mean,
and we just compared losses, of course. It should be more about the wins as well. So we just looked at the 3 losses.
Well, and that's another reason that I would pick Ole Miss over Alabama. I mean, what's the best win for both of those teams? Georgia, right? So if we look at the ceiling for both teams, Ole Miss destroyed Georgia. Alabama destroyed Georgia early, but then let them storm back and barely hung on. If it wasn't for that crazy Ryan Williams play at the end of that game, Alabama loses. And then, of course, Alabama went on the slide after that game. So to me, if we're talking about wins, then, it's, and I've said this a million times, I'm a ceiling guy. I want to see what a team can do at their best, I think that proves more than what they do at their worst. Like,
Sure.
what are you capable of?
Yep.
I just think Ole Miss is a better team than Alabama. That's just my opinion. But
No, I
I
don't
mean, we
think
can.
that's necessarily. I think their passing game is more sophisticated. It's better. It's higher end. I think their quarterback is going to play in the league, and Jalen Milroe is just more of a wild card. So I trust Ole Miss's offense far more than Alabama's. So I get your point. I don't disagree with you.
Yeah. Now, on your personal opinion, what do you think about both of those teams having 3 losses with and Alabama being ranked ahead of Miami by the committee? Do you think that's earned, or do you think that is off?
So again, I would have to really dissect these wins and losses to separate Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina. Other than Alabama and Ole Miss beat South Carolina, so I take a principled stance on that with the head-to-head. But the committee wedging Miami, they did this a couple weeks ago before
Yep.
Miami elevated. They had them wedged in between those 3, and maybe this is the skeptic in me, but I don't know if they're just trying to show us they're actually breaking this down and thinking about it rather than just, well, we take Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina together because they're all 9-3 in the SEC. No, that they wedged Miami in there. I don't know why Miami is not as good or doesn't have as good a resume as Alabama, but they've got a better resume than Ole Miss and South Carolina. That, like, I can understand if you're going to keep Alabama, South Carolina, and Ole Miss together, why you would have South Carolina at the back of the line. That makes total sense. But how they are comparing Miami's resume against Alabama and saying this is a worse resume than Alabama, but it is a better resume than Ole Miss and South Carolina, that I don't understand.
Right. It is very strange to me because then you're questioning, like, okay, so what, are we going off of wins here? Are we going off of losses? What are we doing here? Because either Miami should be ahead of all 3 of them, or what are we doing? Like, and that's why I kind of say it's like an Alabama bias. It's like whatever. It is what it is. I think the other thing I wanted to say is I think if SMU loses the ACC championship because of where they're placed at 8, I don't see them falling out of the playoffs. I think SMU's in regardless. That's just I think they would basically.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think they would just basically go to that last spot if they lose. I think that's what the committee's doing with putting them at 8. They're kind of like, well, this way, if SMU loses, we can knock them down a peg, but maybe not totally out of the playoff. So I do think there's going to be 2 ACC teams in the playoffs based on where the chips fell this week.
If SMU loses,
right? Well, yeah, that's right. Yeah, if SMU loses, there's probably going to be 2 ACC teams. If not, if they win, yeah, there's only going to be SMU. So interesting.
Yeah. So the real MVP brought that up, and I didn't have the rankings up there yet, and I was not clear on that. So I had SMU at 9 in my head. Okay, so they're 8. So I tend to lean in your direction a little bit more than I did when they were 9. And I thought that the committee could justify knocking them down, losing to number 17, that they could knock them below Alabama. So it's one more spot.
Yeah, one more spot, and that's big, I think. Because with so few spots. And then the last thing is, I think the way everything's playing out, I think this actually works out better because a lot of people, like, in the past it's always been, well, Notre Dame doesn't have to play a conference championship, it's not fair. Well, the good thing about the expanded playoffs is now Notre Dame's not the only team that has to have that, right? Or that gets to have that. So now you get Ohio State, Tennessee, Indiana. You get a lot of these teams that are in a conference that are not in the championship game, and they basically get a free bye week now, like Notre Dame. So they get to rest up. And this is the perfect time of the year to rest up because I know, especially with Notre Dame, we've got so many injuries, and other teams, it's a good week for teams that don't have to play in a conference championship. So in some ways, Mark, I know it's not a silver lining, or I know it's not something you probably want to hear too much, but I mean, Ohio State losing that game, at least they get to get a free recovery week, right?
Yeah, as long as their heads are screwed on straight, I have some confidence in Ohio State in this playoff. I don't think there's a great football team out there, and they certainly weren't one on Saturday. So they'll have to be better than that, of course. But that's just kind of a different deal. Yeah, I think Ohio State's fully capable of winning this, but a lot of other teams are as well. Yeah, I think there's about 5 or 6 that can win it. I don't give too much credit to anybody else or chance to anybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a strange situation that, again, I think I mentioned this a few minutes ago, that I expect to be a little bit different in other years, where the Big 12 and the ACC, other than what you're projecting with SMU, is just it's a team that's currently not in the top 12 that has a spot. So if you're just looking at the rankings and saying those are the 12 best teams in the country, according to the committee, well, those aren't all the spots that are going to be taken, because you're going to have this team fly in from the Big 12 and maybe a team fly in from the ACC outside the top 12 to grab a spot, not even just a spot, a bye, versus there being bubble teams, bubble at large positions that are playing this weekend. That's not happening. Penn State and Oregon are in, Texas and Georgia are in, and the Big 12 and the ACC could be all or nothing teams coming in from outside the top 12. I think in the future we may have situations with teams in the SEC and the Big 10 that are more on the bubble, possibly.
Yeah. Well, and as I said before, the problem, people complaining about the 12-team playoff, it's not the playoff that's the problem. It's the way everything's seeded. You know, they need to get the kinks worked out and they got to figure out something with these automatic bids and stuff, and automatic buys. I don't know. They got to figure something out to make it a little bit, because right now you're not really rewarded if you're the best team in the country, right? If you're number one, like the best, and people have talked about this before, the best spot in the playoffs right now is the 5th seed, because then you get to play like Boise State or Arizona State in the first round.
Yeah.
That's a much more favorable matchup than having to go up against Tennessee or Georgia or whatever it might, whoever it might be. It wouldn't be Georgia because Georgia would be the winner of the SEC championship. But anyways, you know what I mean. The 5th seed is the way to go. And why is that? That shouldn't be the case. Should be whoever the number one team in the country is. They should probably have one of the better seeds. I don't know. They got to figure it out. And I still don't believe a 3-loss Bama team. A 3-loss Bama team to me is not even the best team in that gaggle of SEC teams with 3 losses. But anyways, I'm gonna let you go, Mark. I know you got other callers. So,
all right, Rob. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, you too.
Here we go, folks. One more look at the standings here, as I did not see the back end of this, and then we'll take our next call. So, Memphis at 25. Army, off the strength of defeating Texas San Antonio by 5 points. I kind of question that. And I try not to see this in a vacuum, because as I preach to you guys all the time that criticize my rankings, you can't do this in a vacuum and just take one team and say, why'd they move up 2 spots when they only did this? You got to put it all together, because then some of those things come to light. But I think I've done this a few times, and I'm not seeing where Army would elevate from outside the top 25. And this is what we don't know. We don't know who's just outside of their top 25. It's not like the AP poll where we can see, 26, 27, 28, all the way to 41. We have no idea with the committee. So the committee can fly these teams in from anywhere, and we don't know if it's justified or it's reasonable or they're doing it for some reason. But they've got Army coming in again. They defeated Texas San Antonio. It's hard for me to imagine that with teams like Duke out there at 9-3, and now Syracuse is in the poll, the rankings ahead of them, and a bunch of 8-4 teams. Army is not the 24th best team in the country. The 24th best team in the country doesn't lose by 5 touchdowns to Notre Dame. LSU, Iowa, Louisville, Duke, etc. They're not losing by 5 touchdowns to Notre Dame. So anyway, Army's not the 24th best team in the country. Colorado 23, Syracuse 22. There's Illinois at 21. There's UNLV, who of course will ascend all the way into the top 12 if they beat Boise State. We got Mizzou at 19. Mizzou, for as much ridicule as they've taken for looking lousy in their losses, they're really close to being in this thing, but they're not at 9-3. If we think South Carolina is so good, they were at home against Mizzou just a few weeks ago and won the game in the last 15 seconds. BYU's at 18, Clemson at 17. Clemson team that I thought was overranked last week. They're where I think they should be. Iowa State, Arizona State, doesn't matter where they're ranked. They just have to win. Clemson doesn't matter where they're ranked. They just have to win. And then you got, again, this wedging Miami in between these 3 SEC teams is funny. Now, if the committee did its due diligence and they truly believe Miami has a better resume than Ole Miss and South Carolina, but not as good a resume as Alabama, I wish I could trust that. I wish I could trust them to that degree. I cannot. Boise State doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Except, will they take one of the 4 byes away from the ACC, which they wouldn't if SMU wins, but they may. This is going to be an interesting call here. Boise State's number 10 in the country. If they win their conference championship, do they hold off a Clemson team that is number 17 in the country? Or does the committee justify saying this win against a number 8 SMU is so good that Clemson moves past Boise State? But this is not your typical Mountain West Conference championship win for Boise State that they're staring down. This is not the typical 9-3, this team's 40th in the country. No, the committee has UNLV just below Clemson. So I don't know if the committee can justify raising Clemson all the way up 8 spots to pass Boise State when Boise State would have defeated the number 20 team in the country that is only 3 spots behind Clemson. So let's keep an eye out for that. There's Indiana. They should be safe. Let's see. They're at 9. If Clemson wins, they keep SMU in the field. You bring in the Big 12 winner. That has knocked Indiana to 11. They should be fine. And then everybody else should be fine other than SMU possibly playing a conference championship game that's going to ding them, although the committee says it won't. So, and they've got 4 spots to play with. So maybe SMU is a team that's going to make it as an at-large. All right, let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. We got our buddy Will on the line.
Mark, I think in this Bama game has a chance to stick because I think if Georgia beats Texas and Oregon beats Penn State by how I think they'll happen, I think they'll put Texas as the 5, and then they'll put maybe Penn State maybe down right below Ohio State. And I'm feeling pretty good about this matchup against Bama because, I mean, you look at what Oklahoma did to them with their – I mean, Jackson Arnold isn't a running quarterback, and you look at how he did.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking Riley Leonard will have more success than Arnold. I mean, I think Bama will show up and play better, but him and Jeremiah Love against that rushing defense that I saw in like a 20-degree night in South Bend, I'm feeling pretty good about that, Mark. Do you think?
Well, I certainly think Notre Dame's a more consistent football team. They show up every week, aside from the obvious.
Mm-hmm.
They show up every week, and we pretty much get the same football team much more consistently than almost anybody else in the country, not named Oregon. And for as much ridicule as Penn State gets, they're at least consistent. And there might be a few other teams I'm forgetting. Tennessee's been pretty consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia has not. Texas has not. Ohio State has not as of last week. Yeah, Notre Dame's more consistently good than Alabama.
I also look at the coaching matchup. Mike Denbrock going up against Kane Womack, and then Golden against Sheridan is just a mismatch, too, in my book. And if they keep Milroe in the pocket, don't let him escape, don't let him run around, I'm feeling good about him not taking over the game. Maybe put Xavier Watts, have him watch Ryan Williams at all times. Make sure he doesn't go crazy like he did against UGA.
Yeah, I see no reason not to sell out against the Jalen Milroe going off against LSU kind of game. Mm-hmm. And then you can always adjust to that. You can go back to your base defense if he can somehow burn you. And Jalen Milroe does have a great deep arm, not just strength, but he's accurate with the deep ball. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would guard against that ground game from Milroe because that's the Bama formula and has been now for 2 years, is that when they beat a good team, he's had a great rushing game.
I mean, I would definitely keep Jack Kaiser as a spy on him. Linebacker, fast linebacker. And then, but yeah, that was just my argument that I was making against Darrell, who's saying that Notre Dame, that Bama would win. But do you think that the committee definitely will take out SMU if they lose like a 3-point game and what's essentially a home game for Clemson and Charlotte? Do you think that's a
no,
given?
I don't. My initial thought was that they would, but I was also thinking of SMU being number 9 before I pulled up the rankings because I was thinking, okay, they'll drop SMU from 9 out with Alabama only being 2 spots away because SMU had lost to number 17, Clemson, who, of course, has lost to South Carolina, has lost to Georgia, 2 SEC teams that Bama beat. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think it's really justified. It's a close call. Mm-hmm. Bama's not adding to their resume at all, and you can always make all sorts of you can make all sorts of arguments and go back and revise things because everybody's resume changes even if they don't play because the teams they played are playing and either improving or regressing. So, of course, Alabama beat Georgia. Georgia could go on and win the SEC championship. You can bump Alabama's resume there. So there are certain things that can happen there that can have impact on this. But when you match up the wins and losses, I'm not seeing where SMU has much of a fight against Alabama.
I agree there. And I'm
sorry, when you match up wins. Yeah. If you match up losses, they do.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you, Mark. Rhett Lashley just must be kicking himself for not putting Jennings in as the starter before that BYU game because that was a 1-possession game. And they started.
The guy they had as the starter did a good job last year and threw 28 touchdowns, Preston Stone, and was a really good quarterback. And I had no idea that their guy was on the bench and that Preston Stone was that close to getting benched. But that's what happened. Yeah, 3-point loss against BYU, which is still a quality loss.
Yeah, it is a quality loss. Yeah,
it was a very quality loss. 3 points And like you say, if this committee is truly doing its job, then they are talking about Kevin Jennings not being the starting quarterback in that game until Preston Stone went like 2 for 10 or whatever he did. I know it was a putrid showing before Jennings got into the ball game.
Mm-hmm. I just feel like the committee is going to put him in for Bama in for TV ratings, but I do think that SMU is a deserved team, even if they lose. But I think it's not most deserved. It's an invitational, as you would say.
Yeah, I'm just not crazy about their wins. Mm-hmm. Best win, Louisville, 8-4. Second best win, Pitt, 7-5. There's got to be somebody better than that. Oh, well, they beat Duke. Duke's 9-3.
I mean, their wins are not impressive, but
So they have no ranked wins. According to this committee, if you just go by the committee, and of course
Louisville is one of the best 25 teams in the country, but it is what it is that they're not.
Are they? I guess they are.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue with you because I'm not I'm on the fence on that. I don't know that they are, but I also wouldn't say that they are not. They're close. They're in that range.
The Stanford loss is bad for Louisville, but
yeah, that's a bad loss. But again, the Alabama SMU comparison is Alabama beat Georgia. Alabama beat LSU. Alabama beat South Carolina. Those 3 wins are all better than SMU's best win. And then SMU will have had a chance to beat Clemson and didn't do it. I have some problems with that.
That's fair. I think SMU just another thing. One more argument for SMU is that they've been very consistent, and Bama has not.
True. They've been consistently good against 6-6 ACC teams. They have been. You're right. They've been consistently good against Virginia and Cal. And I'm only slightly.
I mean, they're not beating around the bush against those teams.
They're
taking them to the
they
sword,
have been,
but
they've been the Indiana of their conference.
Yeah. This Miami placement, it's just goofy.
Yeah. I don't know if you heard what I had to say to somebody. I think it was Rob.
Yeah.
That I don't know if this is the committee just letting us know that they're really taking this seriously, and they've determined that Miami has a better resume than South Carolina and Ole Miss, but they don't have a better resume than Alabama.
If SMU played the teams that Miami did, because Miami's played a tougher ACC schedule with Syracuse, Georgia Tech, do you think that would help them out at all, or no?
Well, it should if the committee's doing their job. Yeah, it should. Yeah, so Miami, you mentioned Syracuse 9-3. You mentioned Georgia Tech 7-5, but we saw
Louisville
them play Georgia.
Also.
They both played Louisville. What Virginia Tech finished? 7-5.
6-6.
6-6.
Yeah. I guess it's not that much better, but it is a slightly better.
And then maybe it's evened out, though, by the BYU versus Florida comparison, although the Florida win looks a lot better than we thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Well, Florida should probably be in these rankings.
It is hilarious to me that, like, Missouri, I mean, even though Missouri got blown out, like, they are, if they would have just turned around one of those games, that they would probably be in the playoff, even though
and the South Carolina game would have been the game to turn around.
Yeah.
They only lost in the last 15 seconds of that game.
Yeah, that might have been the game. Was that the game of the season?
The game of the season.
The Missouri South Carolina game.
Really? I didn't watch it. I just know what happened, but I didn't watch it.
It was definitely the best finish.
I'll have to go back and look at that.
It was a heck of a game. And one more question, Mark. Do you think that Boise State, do you think the committee will place the Big 12 champion ahead of Boise State for sure?
No, I don't know for sure. Because again, I don't know if you heard me say this. I think it's fascinating that we don't have the typical setup where Boise State's playing a nobody, somebody that's not in the rankings. Usually the group of 5 situation is whoever won the American is playing. Yeah, that's been a little bit different. There have been some high-end American teams, but they're sitting right there at number 20 So are they going to elevate? I used the Clemson
Mhm.
as the comparison at number 17. Are they going to lift them all the way up 8 spots based on beating number 8, while Boise is beating number 20? That's only 3 spots behind Clemson. So you could say the same thing with Arizona State and Iowa State being at 15 and 16. Like this Mountain West Conference win, according to the committee's own rankings, not according to me,
Not Cordy. Yeah. Mhm.
is a strong win.
Mhm.
I don't know if you can raise a team. And in the situation you brought up is in some ways, I picked the lowest ranked team being Clemson, but you picked a team, whether it's Iowa State or Arizona State, that's going to beat a lower ranked team, not the number 8 team that's going to beat just 15 or 16. So do you raise them up 6 spots to pass Boise State when they just beat 15 or 16 versus Boise State beat 20? I don't think, if the committee's being like, I wouldn't mind that, because I think that Big 12 champion has earned that at 11-2 versus 12-1, playing a much more difficult schedule top to bottom. So, but I think based on their rankings, that's not logical to do that.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what they do, Mark. But I don't know. I'm fired up about this Notre Dame Bama game. I hope it sticks. I hope this is who the Irish play. But obviously, it'll be a fun game.
That'll be fun, and that will be a game that even non-college football fans will be interested in because of the obvious name brands.
All right. Appreciate it, Mark.
Thank you, Will. Have a good night. We always appreciate Will stopping by. I would love to have a crack at Ward Manuel and these committee rankings. All right, next up, we got Play to Win stopping by. Welcome into the Voice of College Football.
Hey, how's it going, Mark?
Good.
Man, it's a great show. Good callers. Now, I always learn a lot, just like from my other show that I Drew Tamu, and he's off tonight. So, but I'm glad I caught you. I didn't even know you had a call-in show, and I just happened to run across it. So it's good to be here.
Yeah, we're here. Well, it doesn't matter now, but we've been here to watch the playoff show and go through the rankings every week. So we'll be here Sunday as soon as the rankings come out. We'll watch the rankings unveiling together.
Yeah, that sounds like fun, man. I'll be definitely liking, subscribing, and looking for you, so
Thank
we
you,
can
sir.
make it a regular thing. Anyway, just touch real quick on the Aggie game Saturday night against Texas, and I just thought, man, it was really, with less than 5 minutes to play. I don't know where Colin Klein was getting his inspiration from, but I mean, you keep doing the same thing. It's like the definition of insanity. Just keep doing the same thing over and over again, right at the end, and running Daniels inside. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you thinking? Why didn't you run a quarterback bootleg or a trick play, or at least kick a field goal? Is get on the board, to give us a chance to hopefully, tie the game. I don't know. It was just like a comedy of errors at the end there, that he just allowed that to happen. Then we got stuffed, behind the line of scrimmage on 4th down. It just, I don't know. The play call at the end just was kind of just really suspect. I don't know why you just keep doing the same thing over and over again. We get the same result. Anyway.
Bingo. So before you move on to your next topic, I got to say that I pretty much said everything that you just said there in the video that I did right after the game, because I didn't see the entire game because I got backed up I'm recording games all day Saturday and trying to watch as many games as I can, and
Right.
I kind of whip through them. But anyway, so I watched the last 6 or 7 minutes. But yeah, Texas A&M's knocking on the door, everyone, and they're at the 1 yard line after. Anyway, they're down at the 1 yard line. It's 17-7. And yeah, they just slammed it between the tackles 3 straight times. And then what amazed me was, I understand the decision. I can go with either decision. Kick the field goal, get within one score, and then you got 5 minutes left, whatever, something in that range, and you got to get a stop on defense. Then you got to drive the ball all the way down the field and score a touchdown. Or you think, we're going for it right now. We're a yard away. We got to go for it right now. Cut this to 17-14, and then we just need a field goal, obviously, to get to overtime, or we can win the game. But once they called a timeout, I thought they're going to come out with their best play. They're going to figure out a really good play. And I always love the quarterback option of running and throwing when you've got a quarterback that's as talented as Marcel Reed with his legs to threaten the defense that way. And I just couldn't believe that they were slamming Amari Daniels right into that line. That's what they came up with after calling a timeout. I was amazed.
Yeah, and we had four timeouts. I think the actual time was 4:56 left on the clock. And you got the 2 minute stop. We had 3 timeouts. And going with Daniels inside was just, I'm like, man, look, it's the definition of insanity. You just keep doing the same thing over and over again and hope for, a better result, and it didn't happen. And there's got to be a trick play in that book that Colin had. Didn't call it, something. I mean, like option right and throw back left to Marcel Reed. I mean, we're only a couple of yards from the end zone.
I hear you.
So it didn't happen. But
and by the way, I think Mike Elko is a great coach. I think he was by far, I said this before this season, the best hire of the offseason. But I'm glad that's the first time I've ever seen him do something that I questioned.
But I agree. I agree with you, Mark. I think he was the best selection. I'm glad we got him. And he used to be defensive coordinator before he went to Duke, came back. And now we're 8-4. We're looking better than we did last year. And we got some great players. And I'm proud of all of them. We've had a good year. We beat some teams. We beat Florida. We beat Arkansas, Mizzou. We beat who else?
LSU.
LSU, ranked teams, beat them, and really looked great. But, right at the end of the Texas game, man, it was just, I don't know. That was really questionable, the play calling, but that's the way it went. But, hey, I want to say something about Coach Sarkisian. Sarkisian, however you say his name, I think, anyway, that was really a stand-up thing that he did, was hurt his players off the 50-yard line because they wanted to go plant their flag out there, would have might have caused a riot because he'd already seen the earlier games. We saw Ohio State and Michigan get into it and then pepper spray by the cops, So I thought that was really a stand-up thing. So, kudos to Coach Sarkisian for, keeping his guys off the 50-yard line and herding them back and taking control of his players. That was great. So good thing there. And also, Mark, I want to talk about the Texas-Georgia matchup in the championship. Texas is coming on strong. They beat us. They look like they're peaking at the right time. So do you see Texas beating Georgia in the championship? You see that's where they're at right now with their ball club, and they can do it.
Yeah. Well, I'll make an official pick later this week, but my thoughts are that when they met the first time, I know Georgia was coming off some lackluster performances, but I picked Georgia to win the game. But I do think history shows us, now this is not definitive, but there is a slight lean toward the team that lost the first game. And I'm talking about rematches in college football, not in the NFL, where they play twice a year because you got bad teams playing good teams. But when you got rematches in college football, they're always with good teams because that's the only time you rematch is in the postseason. And I think there's an advantage to the losing team because they have things to work on and they have a reason to change strategies and fix some things. So, and I do think Texas is playing really sound football on defense, and Georgia has not always been as consistent. So, I do lean Texas.
I'm going to. It would make us look better if they go on and beat Georgia, and then get in the bracket. Waiting for their opponent who they're going to play. So I'm thinking they're picking at the right time. They look like they've played Georgia already, and I think they're going to look over that film. They're going to look over it over and over, and figure out this is how we're going to beat Georgia. This is how we do it. This is where we failed the first time, but we're going to go over the film. We're going to go over in practice, what we're going to do to beat them. And I think, more than likely, it might be a close game. I'm calling it 31-21 Texas. 31-21 Texas. I think they'll win out. It's going to be a great ball game. But I mean, right now it's exciting. College football is exciting. Of course, I'm an SEC guy, so I want to see somebody from the SEC, beat out the competition and get to the national championship. I mean, but actually, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Alabama, are just not. They're just not at the top of their game right now. I don't think they are. I think there's going to be some struggling, and maybe our best chance is going to be either Georgia or Texas, to move on and make it to the national championship. We'll see, but it's been a great year. I'm happy. I'm happy with my Aggies, even though we went 8-4. We had a pretty good year, and we got a new first-year head coach, and we got to give that time to gel. See about next year. I'll be excited about the maroon and white game in April. We finally get our talent back out there and see who we get through the portal. We might be getting some players. We'll see
Absolutely.
how it works out.
Oh, I think everyone, excuse me, everyone's going to be getting some players.
Yeah. The portal is going to be active, and it might even be some chaos. There might be people leaving, going to another team, good players that not staying. Surprises. We're going to probably see a bunch of surprises in the portal, as players going somewhere else where you thought they might stay with that college and they go to another team. So it's going to be interesting to see. And thanks for the show, Mark. This is great. I'm going to be looking forward to getting back on, and we'll talk college football.
Absolutely. Anytime, sir.
Okay, buddy. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
All right. Let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. We got our guy, Tide Guy, showing up tonight.
Hey, Mark, how are you?
I am doing great. How you been?
I am good. Looking at this playoffs, I kind of laugh because I said last year they should keep the playoffs at 4, maybe go to 6. If you go more than that, it's just going to water it down. But I'm okay with the 16 team because I like to watch games. So, who's numbered 11, who's number 12? I know people look down on Alabama because we've been there and, we've been there. But you look at who we beat, who we play, I think that matters. I don't think we deserve to win a national championship this year, but you moved it to 12 teams. So, that's what happens.
Yeah, it's a reset. So are there the larger the field, the more disparity between who earned it and who didn't earn it as much. If Oregon goes and wins the Big Ten championship, obviously they're going to be at 13-0, and there are going to be other teams at 10-3 or 9-3 possibly in the playoffs. So Oregon earned it way more than those teams, and their ranking and the opportunity of them getting a bye doesn't even come close to justifying the difference between the two. But it's a reset then. Then all of a sudden, it doesn't matter what your record was. You got in. So now it's a new season, and who's the best team from December 20th on?
Right. And I hear people say, well, Ole Miss deserves this. South Carolina deserves the, Ole Miss is a good team this year. South Carolina was a good team this year, but as far as South Carolina goes, we beat them heads up, and that does need to matter. And then you look at Ole Miss. Yeah, they beat Georgia by more than we beat Georgia because we let Georgia come back, but we beat LSU. That should matter too. And we were 3-1 against, ranked teams, which is more wins than LSU or South Carolina, Miami, or Ole Miss.
Yeah. I think that, again, we just sized it up with another caller, Ole Miss versus Bama, because they thought that Ole Miss had a better, just looked better, played more consistent, which I can't argue with that. Alabama's got this Oklahoma wart, and the
Well,
Bama
Alabama
game,
is Dr. Jekyll and Mr.
yes,
Hyde.
yeah,
If we put out the team that played in the first quarter against Georgia, we could beat almost anybody.
sure,
But then you look at the other games we played, and we can't beat anybody. I mean,
yeah,
there's no doubt.
yeah, yeah. Well, if you play the game you did in the first quarter against Georgia, you would beat everyone.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, but that's a problem with the first head coach, his first season, the players, getting used to his system and that. I'm just happy we went 9-3. I mean, no other first year coach at Alabama has done that well since, 1920s or 30s. I'm sorry, so I'm just happy that we get a chance to possibly play. I do believe that if SMU does lose, I think if you look at our resume against SMU's, it's the same argument as our resume against Miami.
Sure, it
Because
is.
SMU would have only played one ranked team, and that's BYU, and they lost to the only ranked team they played.
Yeah, in Clemson.
And Clemson, yes.
Yeah, you can't compare Alabama's wins and SMU's wins. They're not even comparable.
But I mean, unfortunately, this is what a 12-team playoff is going to look like many years. You're going to have 4 teams from the Big Ten, 4 teams from the SEC, and then 4 teams that are going to fight for the other positions.
Yeah. Yeah. Notre Dame many times is going to take a spot from
Right.
a team that plays in a conference. And then the Big 12 and the ACC are going to hope that they have a second team that has an outstanding season and that their losses are distributed the right way, that they don't have a bunch of 8-4 teams, but they have 2 11-1 teams, let's say, play in the conference championship game, or a 12-0 play at an 11-1 in the conference championship game.
Right, because if you look at the ACC this year, if Florida State wasn't as bad as they were, I mean, that hurt Miami, that hurt, you need Clemson, Miami, Florida State, and let's say a Georgia Tech. You need 4 good teams to prop that ACC up to get them a second team year in and year out.
Yeah, and you also have 3 teams in the ACC separated themselves: SMU, Miami, and Clemson. And Miami's Florida win wasn't anything impressive to begin with, but turned out to be a pretty good win. But SMU lost to BYU, so they lost their big non-conference game, and Clemson lost twice out of conference to the SEC. So they didn't really take care of business outside the conference.
Right. And unfortunately for Clemson, though, I mean, they did play South Carolina, who was much improved this year. I mean, they are a legitimate team. And I do believe that if they would have been one of the top 12s, I think they would have had a chance to win a first round.
Sure. Oh, I believe so too. But see, what that game did was, that's the kind of games we need to see. And we just kind of lucked into that one because it's a rivalry game that we actually got to see the number 12 team and the number 15 team in a season where it's not just a decent game and there's a 4-team playoff and it doesn't matter. But no, we got a 12-team playoff and we got number 12 playing number 15 as a rivalry game the last weekend of the season. So it turned out to be very meaningful, even though ironically, the team that lost the game still has a path to go and get an automatic bid to the playoff, and the team that won the game is probably on the outside looking in.
Right. And maybe with an Alabama getting in, and let's say SMU loses and we get Clemson in there by the auto bid, and let's say Alabama still jumps SMU, then that's going to show these conferences that you need to play stronger schedules. Now, Alabama didn't have the toughest schedule in the world. I mean, we do have a great strength of schedule, but we did play 3 cupcakes. But it does show you that, you do need to play tough matchups in order to help your resume.
Absolutely. All right, Tide Guy. Anything else?
Nope, that is all. Mark, you have a great day, and I'll see you again.
Yeah, good to hear from you. Have a good night.
All right, bye.
All right, our buddy Tide Guy stopping by. Let's get in the Super Chat contribution here. And I would like to remind everyone that we've got Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. That's the most effective way to contribute to the Voice of College Football. But we do appreciate the Super Chat contributions as well. So those are available. Gixxer Squid. I find it funny that the highest ranked teams by conference are either new or relatively new to their respective conferences. That's a very astute comment there. So Gixxer Squid is referring to, of course, one of the two teams, and really 3 of the top 4 teams in the Big 12. So understand that even though we've got an Arizona State, Iowa State Big 12 championship game, there was a 4-way tie for first place in the Big 12. And this is one of the big reasons and one of the big issues I have with these expanded conferences is that we had 4 teams tie for the Big 12 championship. And then we just had to go through this convoluted tie-breaking system that nobody can really understand. And I'm exaggerating because if you read it, you can understand it. Yes, and I understand it. And I could go through it. But to determine that a team should be in a conference championship game because their opponent's schedules have a 48% winning percentage versus the team that they're being compared to, and their opponent's winning percentage in the conference is 44%. So 48% versus 44%, that shows us that that team earned or deserved to play in the conference championship game. That's just stupid. So we have teams not playing each other that tie for conference championship leads, and then we got to go through this tie-breaking system to determine who is going to play in the conference championship game. So therefore, we've got Colorado, BYU, Arizona State, and Iowa State all at 7-2, a convoluted tiebreaker system, and voila, no one here could explain it, including me, because I've forgotten what the answer is. But Iowa State and Arizona State emerged as the 2 teams that should be playing in the Big 12 championship game, even though Colorado and BYU have the same record. Okay, Gixxer Squid bringing to light that 3 of those 4 teams competing for the Big 12 championship are new to the conference. It's not the old guard of Kansas State, Iowa State, Texas Tech, TCU, et cetera, Baylor that are playing in the Big 12 championship game. It's Iowa State, yes, who, by the way, is seeking its first conference championship game since, somebody in the chat, give me the last time that Iowa State won a conference championship. I will give you a gold star if you can, in the future here, when we get our merch together, I'll give like a mug. But as it stands right now, I'll give a gold star to anyone in the chat that can tell us when the last time Iowa State won a conference championship. Will? No. The real MVP? No. Any conference championship? 1953? No. 1996? No. 1996 was the first year of the Big 12, and certainly Iowa State has never won a conference championship in the Big 12 or in the Big 8 before that. I don't even know the name of the conference. I don't remember. Good guess, Sandra. Sandra, very good guess. You're getting there. Michael says never. We have said that that is not correct. 1776, the biscuit. Very nicely done. 1938. 1912. I could not tell you off the top of my head. I know that I've looked it up, obviously, what conference it was. It was not the Big 12 or the Big 8. Predated that. 1912. Iowa State has not won a conference championship since 1912. And I'm sure we could all name the starting quarterback on the team. So Gixxer, and then Gixxer is pointing out as well with the ACC that one of the 2 teams that is going to the conference championship game is SMU. Think about this. Miami entered the ACC in 2004. 2004. when Miami, coming off some of the most legendary teams in the history of college football, 2001, 2002, entered the ACC in 2004 from the Big East, that we would be sitting here 20 years later saying that Miami has never won the ACC championship. That's pathetic. 20 years in a conference as marginal as the ACC to boot, and Miami has never won a conference championship. And on top of that, SMU is going to be playing for the conference championship Saturday night in their first season. That you can't make up. Gixer coming back with this one. Yes, and he's pointing out these other ones as well that I was going to get to. But Oregon will be the favorite to beat Penn State on Saturday night and win the Big Ten in their first season in the conference. Texas in the SEC. And then, yes, SMU, Arizona State. And I brought up some of the other teams that are in the running for the Big 12 or were record-wise. All right, folks, we appreciate you being here. The Amazon links in the description section of all the videos. Please, it's shopping season, of course. It's Christmas. So when you're on Amazon, which like 80% of you are, please, I implore you to use the Amazon link that we deliver there in the description section. I am telling you, it is the same exact shopping experience. It doesn't cost you a penny. And you still, Amazon logs all of your information. It instantaneously makes that link your link. And so it doesn't mess up your purchase history. It still keeps track of all that business. It will automatically identify you. The magic of technology. You can use our link. And if you click on our link, it will automatically see that it's you. I have sat next to people and had them do that. And it automatically says, bingo, it's Jim. So please use the Amazon link. Also, folks, let me get this out of the way. That's the book that's out by yours truly, Disputed National Champions. Kind of goes along with tonight's theme here. Disputed National Champions. It's a historical reset of the 1990s. No, I'm not taking any national championships away from anyone. I've done that elsewhere, actually. But we go through every season of the 1990s, and we look at the various storylines, the preseason hype, the games during the season, of course, the key moments, the key results, the rankings, the postseason bids, the postseason results, the final vote, whether it was fair, valid, inaccurate, what was missed, who got screwed, what was the impact of that season, was there a dynasty that was built and launched, or the end of an era? What was the impact of that particular season? Way beyond that, though, this is not just a history book. You go through each season, and we place that season, 1990, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99. Each season, we place into the BCS era, which started, of course, in 1998. We place it in the 4-team college football playoff and show you who would have played in a 4-team playoff. We place it in the 12-team playoff and who would have played in the 12-team playoff format that particular year. And, of course, the 14-team format has been proposed, so we thought we don't want this book to be outdated soon. So we've got a 14-team playoff for each of these seasons. Plus, we show you who would have played in conference championship games, because remember, there was not an SEC championship game until 1992, Big 12 till 1996, and there was no Big 10 championship game or a Pac-12 championship game or an ACC title game until this book covers this ground. So we tell you, this is the conference championship game for that particular year. And then also based on going forward of the current conference structure, who would have played in the conference championship games in all those seasons. So it's a fun read. It's a quick read. See, I didn't write War and Peace. It's just 100 pages. And I believe he will enjoy it. It's 101 pages. So the link is in the description section of the video as well. Disputed National Champions, or you can just go on Amazon and just look up Disputed National Champions. That makes a great gift for the college football family, the college football fan in your family or in your life. Next up, here, the voice of college football, we got Michigan Man.
What's up, Mark? How you doing, man?
I'm good. What have you been up to?
Just still relishing. But real quick, I want to ask when is the this is on me for not looking this up. When is the first round of the playoffs?
December 20th and 21st. So there's a single game on Friday night, and then there's a triple header on Saturday.
And then it's just 4 weeks of straight football, pretty much.
Yeah, so then that's the 20th and 21st. It's a Friday night and Saturday. So those are those 4 first-round games. And then when you throw the teams that got the buys into it, there's got to be 4 more teams. So those are going to be on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So the 31st and the 1st. And so then we're going to be down to 2 semifinal games. Those are going to be like whatever the next weekend is, like a double header on Saturday night, just like the semifinals have been. And then we got the championship game on the 20th.
Okay, got you. Did you see the projected playoff bracket that they have?
Somebody read it off to me. I can try to pull it up here.
Yeah. I don't remember if this was they don't penalize. Maybe I'm wrong on this. Did they penalize you for losing in the championship game still?
They say that they're not going to.
Okay, so that's probably why they have Penn State in the 5th seed then, I'm assuming. In their projected playoff brackets.
Under Ohio State.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out because that would make sense then because I was like, well, if they lose, they'd have 2 losses. They would have lost to the same opponent. Obviously, the Buckeyes beat Penn State.
Yeah. Buckeyes beat Penn State. So you got the head-to-head plus, let's say Penn State loses by 3 touchdowns and Ohio State obviously played Oregon down to the last second of the game. There would be no comparison between, the head-to-head or the other loss. But
they don't penalize for that.
They're not.
That's kind of, you agree with that?
I don't agree with that. It's a football game.
I don't either. Yeah.
It's a data point. We're seeing Penn State play the toughest team. They're playing the best team that they've played this year. I would have liked to have said otherwise, but that's not the truth right now. So they're playing the best team that they've played all year. We're not going to evaluate that game. Just going to give them a pass.
It's crazy because that 5th seed is a cakewalk, man.
Yeah,
it really is a cakewalk. And right now, I would argue Ohio State got the toughest path according to the projected playoff because it's they'd have to play Tennessee, then they'd have to play Oregon, and then probably Penn State.
Yeah,
that's the toughest path. We could look at them, but I'm pretty sure that's gnarly, Mark.
I'm with you. I am with you.
And then obviously whoever makes the championship game, but that's just before you get there.
So, yeah. Okay, so here we go. I couldn't find a bracket per se, but I got the games listed here.
Yeah, they got one on Twitter. I saw that they posted on ESPN. Yeah, so in this scenario, Ohio State would have to beat Tennessee, then they would have to beat Oregon, and then they would have to probably, because Penn State, I would assume, would beat Boise State and ASU, then they would have to beat Penn State to get to the championship game.
Yeah, that's rough. Look at Penn State, Arizona State, Boise State.
I would just lose the game on purpose, Mark. I know you don't do that, but I'm just saying, right?
Yeah, because if you're Oregon, you
could avoid Oregon.
You're Ohio State,
and you could potentially avoid Oregon, potentially. But then again, you probably don't want to play Ohio State either. So I mean, eventually you're gonna have to
Oh,
play.
sure.
You know what I'm saying? But
It's much nicer to show up against somebody in the semifinal rather than beat up after 2 games in the semifinal.
yeah, no, for sure,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. That's we've talked about that ever since they named a 12-team playoff, and we knew what the format was going to be with the conference championship buys, that 5 seed was the place to be. They got to do something about that.
Wouldn't it just implementing reseeding help with a lot of this?
I think exactly.
That's what does college basketball do that? Is it college basketball that does that?
The NBA does it now. I'm almost positive.
Okay. You know,
Like
that would
if
fix
the 8
that would
seed
fix
beats the
that.
1 seed in the first round, they used to have a nice path, but then they reseed it now.
Okay, that is something they should implement right away, in my opinion, to help with this. Because in that scenario, I mean, in that scenario, Penn State would still play ASU, right? And then after that, they get a tougher matchup. I'm
Yeah.
assuming.
It gets
So they would still get an easy first round, but after that, at least they're not getting Boise State.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what they would get, whoever the 4th best team in the country is.
Hey, hey, here's the thing, Mark. You know what would be, I think, a
Georgia or
death nail?
Texas, somebody.
What? Yeah, for sure. I think this would be a worst case scenario for Ohio State fans. If they end up playing Penn State and they lose to James Franklin as a cherry on top.
Well,
Do
yeah.
you think that would send it over the edge right there?
Well, I think any loss in the first 2 games is going to send it over the edge.
You think even if they lose well, yeah, that Michigan, yeah, you're right, because there ain't no rivalry like that rivalry. And when you lose it that many times, it don't take much. You're right about
Not
that.
on Ohio State's side. You kept your guy around for 5 straight losses.
Yeah, that's true, and I agree. And I agree with you. A big reason for the reason why we kept them around is because we went through those dark ages. So there's a little bit more room allowed. You know,
Oh, sure.
that's not the case with Ohio State when you guys have been just excellent for so long. That's the standard is higher because you have to win that. You're expected to. So I mean, I also think it's obviously the type of Michigan team he lost to as well. But
Oh, sure. Absolutely. And Urban Meyer handed him a much different program than what Brady Hoke handed Jim Harbaugh.
and maybe Urban Meyer comes back, Mark.
Wouldn't that be something?
I can see it. I can see it, man. I really could. He is a very competitive guy, man. He probably doesn't like how he left, so I can see him. And he probably doesn't want to end his career with that Jacksonville as the last memory of his football career.
Yeah.
Here's the last thing I'll say, man. I guess okay. I got Penn State beating Oregon.
Okay.
And I just want to see something different, man. I like the unexpected. All right. I'm pretty sure. How much is Oregon favored by?
I think it's 3.5.
Oh, that's not that bad.
No, I thought it'd be higher. Let me double check. I saw 3.5 and I saw 5.5. I got to bet that's being moved up. I think the public loves Oregon and doesn't really like Penn State.
I just got a feeling, man. Penn State gonna win that game for some reason. Look, I think Oregon's really good, but I think they're susceptible. I really do. I mean, we've seen it multiple times this year against obviously Wisconsin, Boise State, and I don't know. Someone's telling me they might sneak that one out, man. I don't know. But yeah. I mean, that's pretty much all I got. I'll end it with one statement, man. Right now, I got Georgia winning the national championship. Man. I got Kirby Smart getting his 3rd championship in 4 years.
Okay,
you're pretty much doing what Nick Saban did back in. Go ahead.
You're not going to pull the trigger on Ryan Day running the table.
I mean, how many big games you got to lose for you not to trust them, man? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I just can't. Any game that got, and I hate to say it, Mark, any game that got that like air of pressure around it, like you got to win this game, man. Like you got to win it. He just comes up short. And
Yeah, I think the Michigan situation's different though. I think they've really white knuckled that game, but yeah, he hasn't won these playoff games other than Clemson, but they always play well. It's not like they're choking away these games. Like, I was worried about their psyche 2 years ago after Michigan ran them out of the building in the fourth quarter, and they turned around
they
and
did good
put it
against
together
Georgia.
against Georgia.
But maybe the football guys just don't want you guys winning no more, man. Maybe the football guys are saying, hey, because I mean, look, some of the stuff is very unlucky. Like we really look at it, missed field goals, right? A fumble that wasn't really a fumble against Clemson. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know. You don't have to tell me about it.
Yeah, maybe the football gods are, they're saying, you know what? We sick of the continued winning in terms of like the number of wins. So when you reach that point, we just ain't gonna let you get to the mountaintop. You can continue to win 11, 12 games a year, but we ain't gonna let you get that cherry on top of the end.
That kicker that missed 2 kicks against you guys was 14 for 14 inside 40 yards.
That's what I'm saying. The only thing I could think of, and Mark, maybe you notice, maybe I don't know. If a coach is tense all week, do you think that could go throughout the whole program, like during the prep week?
Sure.
If the whole team that's the only thing I could think of.
Absolutely.
Because it's one thing to miss one, you miss 2. I don't know, man.
Yeah, those were chip shots.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we got the best kicker, but all right, Mark, I'm gonna let you go, man. Go Dogs.
There we go. All right, we got Sean stopping by here at the Voice of College Football. Sean, what's going on? Hello, Sean. You with us?
Whoops. Sorry, I had my.
Oh, you're good.
Forgot to unmute myself. Hey, so yeah, first year of this expanded playoffs, and we have a lot more intrigue than we normally have coming into a championship week, and it's pretty exciting and much better games than we normally have.
Oh yeah.
I was looking at it yesterday when the matchups were determined across every single conference. There wasn't a single championship game with larger than a 4-point spread.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing how different it is from the days of the Big Ten West and the ACC Coastal and crappy Pac-12 divisions.
You're right. Although I don't like how the championship game is being determined. That's been screwed up.
I mean, it's wonky when you get these giant leagues and you have these massively disparate schedules.
Yeah.
It's really,
and teams not playing each other.
Right. Absolutely.
The four teams that tied for first place in the Big 12, there was one game between those 4 teams.
Yeah, and that's generally what will lead teams to having better records, is you avoid a lot of the good teams in the conference.
Yeah.
So that's that's not all that surprising. I mean, you're going to have a lot of those.
Yeah, exactly.
Type of situations.
I guess Wisconsin or Ohio State would have been the best example of knocking off Oregon. If Oregon would have slipped up once, then we would have had Indiana involved in a tiebreaker of some sort because they avoided everyone.
Yeah, they probably would have been on the short shrift because their schedule ended up being a joke. But so interesting. Okay, so there's one thing about these rankings. I think this is glaringly obvious. This is an absurd flaw. Nobody is talking about this. And to me, this is so obvious. This is just a massive error by the playoff committee.
Okay.
What are we doing with Notre Dame? What are we doing here? This team has one of the worst losses I've ever seen for a team in the top 5 at the end of the year. Their best win is over a number 24 Army. There is no way on earth this team should be number 4. This team should be ahead of Ohio State, Georgia, and Tennessee. Like, it is a disgrace that they're that high. And I think they're a good team. I think they can win it. It's no disrespect to Notre Dame, but this resume is a joke.
Yeah, so is the best win, forget Army, because that's not the best win, but I understand
A&M.
you putting it there.
A&M or Louisville.
A&M 8-4, Louisville's 8-4. I had this argument with Brian Driscoll on Irish Breakdown a couple weekends ago because he was all over Penn State and how Notre Dame was so much better than Penn State, and I disagreed with him because I just thought Penn State at least had proven something going toe-to-toe with Ohio State, and Illinois turned in to be a pretty good team at 9-3. And so, yeah, I don't know what to tell you about Notre Dame. They don't they have consistently controlled these games since the loss.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, but that loss is unbelievable. It's a 7-5 MAC team.
Yeah,
that they lost.
Not even the best team in the MAC. No, it's
no. It's. I mean, yeah. I mean, Ohio State and Tennessee have have sketchy losses. that loss is a joke, and I'm not even sure it cost them anything. Where would they be ranked had they won that game? 3?
Yeah, it wouldn't
4?
matter because they wouldn't get a top 4 seed anyway.
Right. It wouldn't matter at all. So there's absolutely no penalty for dropping a game against a really, really bad football team. There. And then also not having any sort of resume, to get there, to atone for that loss. So I don't know, and nobody is talking about Notre Dame. It's been amazing this year. Notre Dame, it's so easy to forget about them and sleep on them this year. I mean,
yeah, because they've never played aside from Texas A&M, and that game was spotlighted. They've never played anything close to the marquee game of the week.
Yep. I mean, yeah, in fact, like the biggest game probably at the time that was played was probably against Louisville, and that was on Peacock, so that ruined a little bit.
Yeah,
their fan, but I mean, it's kind of amazing. The national media hasn't talked about this. There's been no discussion about how overranked Notre Dame is, and they would be basically guaranteed right now in a spot in the 14 playoff. And I can guarantee you go back through the years of the 14 playoff, not one team had anywhere close to as bad of a resume as they do this year.
Except maybe Cincinnati.
Cincinnati beat an 11-1 Notre Dame team.
Well, yeah, I know that, but I don't know that the rest of the schedule was anything. But they're a different deal because they played in the group of 5.
Yep, absolutely. So. Yeah, so looking for Ohio State, I was excited to see them at 6 when they opened today, when I saw the rankings after I left the gym. Like, okay, cool, that's where I wanted them to be in the top 6, but then I remembered how wonky these seedings are, and I had to do kind of the alchemy of this, and I guess right now they would be put down at the 7 spot. Would that be right?
I think it's the 8 spot.
Or 8 spot. Oh yeah, because that's right. Notre Dame can't get a top 4 spot. Another sore spot with me, but yeah. So this is, I mean,
so if Notre Dame gets the 5 spot, they're going to have the prime position in this field.
So let's see. You would have Boise at the 3, Arizona State at the 4, then, right?
Yeah.
So that would,
Or SMU. Somebody.
yeah. Oh, SMU, yeah, for sure. But so I guess is Miami in line to get a bid here, or is that wrong? Because it looks like the AC the Big 12 is not represented here, so that would push
Exactly.
Alabama.
Yeah, they're not going to make it.
Yeah.
Because they just can't get any help. So yeah, you got to jettison the Big 12 winner into this field, and they knock out Miami. And you can't imagine if SMU gets knocked out that they're going to supplant SMU with Miami, having not played a game.
No, not at all. How about SMU? Do they get in with a loss here?
I don't know. We've been banting that one around.
Yeah.
The comparison is going to be SMU against Bama. And SMU certainly doesn't have those crappy losses that Bama does, but they don't have wins against Georgia, South Carolina, and LSU. They don't have anything close to that. They would against Clemson. That's an okay win. But Clemson just got done losing to another SEC team.
Yep.
Clemson lost to 2 of the teams that Alabama beat.
Yeah, I remember a lot was made of SMU coming into the year because their schedule going into the season was perceived as the worst in the Power 4. And it's all based on last year's results. So
yeah, and in a sense, it got even worse from the top end, at least, because I know when I looked at it, they had to get past Louisville and FSU to start the conference season, and obviously Florida State turned out to be a completely different team.
Yeah.
So one of the 2 major teams that they were going to have to play turned out to be a joke. So really, once they beat Louisville, man, they cruised from there.
Yeah. It would be an interesting that might be a very interesting debate between SMU and Alabama.
Oh yeah.
If they get in, because that Bama performance against Oklahoma is just a big black eye for them. Yeah. So, and then I mean, they said they're not going to punish teams for losing this weekend, right? So is that what I heard you say to the last caller?
That's what the committee says.
So okay.
I don't know how you don't do that, but
well, I mean, I don't think you should commit yourself to a position like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
it should be more nuanced than that. I understand the philosophy because we've all looked at it and trying to take years past results and put them into this format to say, what would happen to these conference championship losers? And then you see situations where, man, they got screwed and they got screwed and they got screwed for having to play the best team in the country. So yeah, that had to be taken into consideration that if Penn State was number 10 right now and they were playing Oregon, you take into consideration, wow, you're forcing them to play an extra game and they've got to play the best team in the country. But you don't just completely dismiss it like, oh, well, we're going to award the team that won the game. So that counts. That half of the game counts, but not even evaluate the performance of the team that lost the game. That's stupid.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because
for sure. It makes even less sense in light of what we were talking about earlier. Is that it gets so hard to even put these teams in these championship games. Yeah. It's, I mean, with the way these conferences are set up, Ohio State, 2 wins over teams that are going to be in the playoffs. If Penn State wins, it'll be 0, and they'll have a head-to-head loss. I don't know how you could justify having Penn State ahead of Ohio State in that scenario.
Yeah, let's say Penn State loses by 2 scores. We're not going to go crazy and say they lost 50-0, but they lost a 2-score game. Well, Ohio State beat them on the road, head-to-head, and Ohio State went to Oregon and took the game down to the last second. And Penn State lost to Oregon so the one loss out of, They each lost 2 games, but the comparison of the Oregon, the best team on each one of their schedule, plus their head-to-head, both dramatically go in Ohio State's favor, and they're going to get ranked below Penn State.
Yeah, absolutely. So that doesn't another potential crazy domino. Like, oh, I don't know if it'd be that crazy, but if Boise State were to lose to UNLV, this weekend, I guess UNLV would just end up getting that bid and probably take the 12 spot while the Big 12 champion got the 11.
So we talked about this, Sean.
Yeah,
I brought this up. Think about it. Boise State's at number 10.
Mm-hmm.
So is Arizona State or Iowa State the winner of the Big 12, or Clemson as a 17th ranked team, and those Big 12 teams are 15 and 16? How can the committee justify vaulting them 6, 7, 8 spots over Boise State when they've got UNLV ranked number 20 in the country?
Oh, I don't think they can. I don't think they can. I mean, that's going to be. I mean, if they do, I think they will have just made an error in sorting this out.
And then on the other hand, this argument could be made either way, and the committee's going to do whatever they want, and they can justify it because it's not clear cut. UNLV's the number 20 team, and they beat number 10. And let's say Iowa State 16 and they beat 15. Is that in my eyes, it's not enough to lift those teams. I think that the Big 12 winner should be ranked ahead of, because they've just played such a tougher schedule week to week, that I think that they need to get the bye above the Mountain West winner.
You think that regardless, even with Boise State, their only loss being on a walk-off field goal against the number 1 team in the country, and then mostly being dominant the rest of the season?
Have they really been that dominant?
Pretty much. They've had like 1 or 2 games that have been close into the fourth quarter, but I don't think they've had like a nail biter anywhere.
Not a nail biter, but they've played some fairly marginal football against some bad teams.
Yeah.
Like I can't really respect their schedule against Power 5 schedule.
Well, I mean, like all of those other teams you're mentioning have some pretty marginal football games as well. Clemson got him. Yeah.
But they played 9 legitimate games and then a 10th out of conference. And I don't know what Boise State's really played. 2 teams, 3 teams.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think if you're putting them this far ahead of those teams based on their body of work to this point in the season, I don't think that extra data point should be enough if Boise takes care of business.
Oh, I don't. I agree.
That's
with
a
you.
that's a considerable gap between those 2 teams.
I agree with you. It's not justified at this stage, but I don't have Boise State number 10 in the country. That's for sure.
Yes. Yeah. All right, here. All right. Well, thank you, Mark. That's about all I had, and I don't know. Let's get this conversation on Notre Dame, because this is a joke. I mean, like, nobody is talking about this year. So
you're right. I haven't talked about it, except for when I've been challenged by people picking on Penn State a couple weeks ago. Yeah, and the Penn State schedule and results have only gotten better, and the Notre Dame results have gotten worse in terms of their past schedule, their resume.
I did have one final question here. The Texas-Georgia game, if they're going to be true to their word here, you almost have to put the winner of that game at like the loser of that game at the 5 or the 6 then, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So is there a scenario where, I don't know, one team blows the other one out and then they fall down to like 8? Do you think that could happen? If it's like, just say a joke of a game, if it ends up being like 49-3 or something like that.
Well, of course, that would be more likely to be Georgia if they lost that game because they're sitting at number 5 and not number 2.
All right. So just kind of mapping this out for the scenario. Looks like the Buckeyes are going to be in that 7 through 7, 8, 9 range more than likely. So
yeah,
just got to deal with that. All right, Mark.
Exactly.
Take care.
All right, Sean. Thanks for calling. All right, folks. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Sandra's telling me Mark only G5 champion gets in. I don't know what that means. Yes, we understand that. But no, there can be multiple teams from the group of 5 make it. It's not a rule that they're left out. It's a guarantee that one gets in, but it's not a limitation. There can be 2 or more group of 5 teams make the field. It's just not likely to happen, and it's not going to happen this year unless the committee really wants to think about this. Boise State's at 10. UNLV wins. They only lost to the 20th ranked team in the country. Boise State loses 31-30. Do they not drop? I believe they should out, and I believe the committee would drop them out. But if their name wasn't Boise and they played, if Boise State was Oklahoma and they were playing Tennessee, number 20 in the SEC championship game, and they lost, would they drop out? Maybe not. All right. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who do we have here? It's our guy Garrison showing up tonight.
Yeah, Mark, how are you?
What's going on?
I'm
good.
doing well.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm much better than I was on Saturday.
Well, yeah.
Even with my family, we actually celebrated Thanksgiving that day, so that for some odd reason the turkey didn't taste as good. But
some odd reason, yeah.
So I actually had a question for you. Do you believe or do you think Alabama is ranked where they should be?
I think that do I think that they're ranked where they should be? So I think that there's an interesting comparison between Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina for obvious reasons. They all have the same record. They play in the same conference. And I will probably do a video where I compare their resumes along with SMU and Miami and the teams in the Big 12 that are 10-2, because Alabama has 3 losses that are tough to ignore. They lost to Vandy. Vandy is remarkably improved over what they've been in the past, but they're still not that good of a football team. Right. They're 6-6, and Alabama lost by 5, and the game wasn't quite that close. I watched it. Alabama was never in the lead in that game, but they had a shot. They lost to Oklahoma. That was a deplorable performance. It was unbelievably bad. They scored 3 points. They got blown out against a team that hasn't been able to score on anyone.
Right.
And then they got this Tennessee loss, which is a respectable loss on the road by a touchdown against the number 7 team in the country. So fine. So Ole Miss's losses look much better. South Carolina's losses look much better. I won't go through them, but they're much better losses. Even though Ole Miss lost to Kentucky, he's a bad football team. They lost on one play. They gave up a 4th down play that hit for like 40 yards. They lost the game in the last 45 seconds. They drove the ball down the field, missed a field goal to lose the game. They lost to LSU in overtime. They lost to Florida, a game that they were throwing the ball into the end zone to win the game. All 3 games came down to the wire. South Carolina lost to Bama, ironically. So the issue with South Carolina is I put them at the back of the line because they lost head-to-head to both Ole Miss and Alabama, and I think that's the way it should be done, even though South Carolina is playing better football than Alabama is. So I think Alabama's fairly they have a better resume than Miami for sure. So
Oh,
they
yeah.
should be ranked ahead of them, even though they've got one more loss. So I think that they're appropriately ranked. I just can't get around that they beat South Carolina head to head, because otherwise South Carolina's got a better resume and they're playing
Mhm.
better.
No, and I agree with that. I guess for me, when I look at Alabama, and it'd be one thing if those two losses. I mean, outside of shoot here. I mean, outside of Tennessee, I look at the Vandy loss. You have an unranked team. Then, just like you said, the Oklahoma loss. It it's indescribable. I don't know how that happened, but I look at that and I'm like, man, you get beat down by an Oklahoma team like that. It's one thing if, let's say, you lost 13-10. It'd be one thing. You actually went out there and got your head knocked off. And when I saw that, in my opinion, I can't reason. And yes, they have the Georgia win and they almost gave up, but I can't reason even putting them in the top 12.
Well, they've got a Georgia win. They've got an LSU win by 4 touchdowns, and they got a South Carolina win. So they do have 3 substantial wins that most teams don't have.
And I guess we probably look at the LSU win differently. I don't look at LSU and I don't look at LSU in the fashion that we usually would look at them.
Well, sure. No.
Yeah, I'm just very, I'm just very, and maybe I hate the SEC. I'm not gonna lie to you here, but maybe I just feel as though when I see Alabama with 3 losses, and you lose to Tennessee, and you lose in the fashion that you did to Oklahoma, and yes, Miami's resume is terrible. It's horrid, and yeah, they're I think they're getting punished for when their losses are, and understandably so. But the Georgia win seems like so long ago, and I think if they were to play today, I think Georgia might stomp on them.
So you're weighting wins based on when they were played? So because there's nothing wrong with that. That's a way to do it. It's the NCAA men's basketball model that, okay,
Yep.
what have you done the last 10 games? But if that's the case, then we need to introduce a metric that weights the games, and your September week 1 games only worth this much. And then the next week's worth a little more and a little more and a little more. And there's a
Right.
recency bias, and you have an adjusted win-loss record based on that. If that's what people really want to do. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying we don't do that because we're looking at the records and they all count the same.
Yep. No, that's true. And I don't think it should, I don't believe that we should fully go that way, but I do think everything has to count for something, right? And I'm not sitting here saying, like, again, Miami should not be ahead of Alabama. Miami, it's to have the schedule they have and to not go undefeated with the talent that they have it's hilarious, honestly. And maybe you know what, and maybe and they deserve the credit for the Georgia win, but maybe they are there because the teams behind them, I mean, they probably are better than them. I think if you put Alabama on a field with Boise State, Alabama wins that game. If you put them on a field with SMU, I think they win that game. It doesn't look like a playoff team, but again, every season is its own. So maybe in this specific season, they are a playoff team.
Well, I think you hit on it, that we have to adjust what we think a playoff team is, number one, because before they're all elite, because there's only 4 of them. And if somebody snuck in that wasn't elite, it had to be done. They earned it, but we knew that they weren't elite and they got blown out usually. But now we've got to readjust to 9-3 teams making the playoffs. We may not have any, but we'll probably have one. And again, every time I release my rankings or I kind of make a prediction, I have the last 2 weeks because people seem to like it, make a prediction on what the rankings are going to be from the committee. Yeah, people start to pick on these teams that are 10, 11, 12, 13. But my point is, okay, who are you elevating? Look at these teams in the Big 12. Look at I know that they've got a 1-game better record than Bama.
Yeah.
But my goodness, they've lost to Kansas and Texas Tech, and they haven't beaten anyone that's really that good. Anybody, Arizona State's best win is against Kansas State, 8-4. I don't see them anywhere in the rankings.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa State's best wins against Iowa. They're 8-4. They're an okay team.
Tough.
That's Arizona State beat BYU.
Yeah,
as well.
That's a good win. That's a good win. Do you think Ole Miss should be behind Alabama?
That's a great call right there, because Ole Miss has actually lost to 3 teams that have collectively worse records than Bama by 3 games. But again, they didn't get trounced in any of them. They were all right down to the wire. One was overtime. Now, Ole Miss's performance against Georgia was much more impressive than Alabama's was. Alabama held on for dear life, and Ole Miss was dominant against Georgia. Then after that, they beat South Carolina by 24. So Ole Miss probably does have a better resume, top to bottom, and have been more consistently strong. And we had a caller earlier in the show make that statement than Alabama.
Yeah. And then you do have the LSU loss in overtime, and I mean they beat Oklahoma, which is it's not saying much, but it's a data point.
Yeah, if we would go through and make all the comparisons of all the teams that are common opponents, Alabama barely beat South Carolina. Ole Miss dusted them by 24 points.
Yep.
Bama dusted LSU by 4 touchdowns. Ole Miss lost to them in overtime. Trying to think who else is there that they both played. That's a good question. Well, we had the Georgia. Bama barely beat Georgia. Ole Miss really played a great game.
Yes.
Against Georgia.
That might be it. Yeah.
That might be it. Auburn. I'm going through the whole conference. I can't come up with anybody else that they both played.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right here. I think you got it. You hit them all. Yeah, you did. So, I mean.
So, based on that, I think Alabama's wins are slightly stronger, but Ole Miss's losses are so much better played.
Yeah. It's crazy to say that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh man. Yep. All right, Margaret. That was my own question. I was really, really curious about the Alabama ranking. I was wondering where you stood on that. But thank you for bringing me up here, and you have a good rest of your show.
Appreciate it, Garrison. And by the way, we want to make sure that everyone's aware of where they can find you and your shows throughout the week on the Ohio State channel.
Yes, you can actually find me on Ohio State Primetime on the Voice of College Football with my co-host Ryan Stano. We are on Mondays at 8 o'clock and Thursdays at 8 o'clock for our call-in show. I actually did a live today for the Urban Meyer news that came out. That real fun time with a lot of the comments with that. And then tomorrow, actually, Ryan Stano will be on covering Ohio State's side of National Signing Day or Early Signing Day. And we will be back Thursday for the call-in show.
So listen to that, folks. The Ohio State channel, it's right here on the Voice for College Football. You guys should all be connected. And Garrison and Ryan get together every Monday and Thursday night. And they've also got National Signing Day covered on Wednesday night. Good stuff. Garrison, appreciate you stopping by.
Of course. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.